Hello again. Now we have our bouncing ball images ready and prepared. What I've already done here is this. 3 bounces. We're gonna try squash and stretch as well. Squash and stretch in After Effects can be a bit awkward to create. Here I've kind of kept the fish rotating right onto its nose, then going up, animating the scale. But because in After Effects the rotation and scale are kind of connected to each other, so we couldn't, for example, have the fish rotated this way and then squashed as it should be, because the scale axis follows the rotation axis. Now there are loads of workarounds for this in After Effects, and you would be able to create perfect squash and stretch with the rotating ball or rotating fish. But I'm trying to at the same time keep this as beginner level as possible, because I know some of you are only using After Effects for the first time. So now start again from scratch. Always start by creating a composition, and like last time we used the IADT 1080 preset. I'm importing my background image and my fish. My fish has an alpha channel, so After Effects is asking me what to do with the alpha channel. I'm gonna OK that, because usually After Effects guesses the alpha channel right. I'm gonna drag the background image into the composition. I'm gonna drag the fish, and it's still huge, so I'm gonna scale it by holding shift. It's gonna keep its proportions, and with scroll button I can adjust the size of the viewport. Okay, so I'm gonna place the fish around here. What you might now like to check is that your anchor point is in the middle of your ball or your fish. It's the best time to adjust this, because it gets a bit messy after you have animation on the layer. So you can take the pan behind tool and move the anchor point so that it's roughly in the middle of the object. Back to the selection tool. Now what I'm going to do is going to go to the timeline. I'm going to open the properties on the fish layer, open transform, and here we have position, scale, rotation. Every time you start animating something in After Effects, you activate the channel by clicking this stopwatch icon. And after this, you never switch it off, because this will not just deactivate it, but it will get rid of your animation. Okay, so the workflow in animating in After Effects is this. You go to your next point in time. Now you have to see what your timeline looks like, because mine is fairly long. The composition is 20 seconds long, so this would be 1 second. This would be 2 seconds. So I don't want to go like here to do my next key. I'll go somewhere halfway between 0 and 1 second. I'm gonna go down. After Effects automatically gives me a key point there. Gonna go further in time. Gonna do the first bounce up, down, move further in time, lift it up, move further in time, adjust the place again, and like that. So now if we play this back by pressing spacebar, we can see animation. If your timeline is as long as mine is, you might like to make the work area a bit shorter. So you can do this by pulling this so that it's only the area you want to work on. And this is how you zoom in on the timeline. So make yourself a nice wide work area there to play with. So now there are a couple of things we can notice right away. The movement is very wavy and and the speed is very even. We could start by making this whole animation a bit faster, and here's the way you can retime a range of animation, range of keys. If I select all the keys, or some keys that I'm not happy with, if I hold Alt and drag from the last key, After Effects will squash the keys evenly towards each other, and say now my bounces would be twice faster. If your bounces are too fast, you can do the same but dragging out, and this would give you slower movement. As you can see, this is the motion trail, and you can even, if you look closer, it's hard to see here, but there are small dots along the motion trail, and those are the frames. The next, I would like to make the shape of this motion trail more like a bounce. You can see here are two handles. You can shape the curve quite a lot with the two handles, but I'm not able to create a nice short angle here if these two are locked. And the way to change the type of this is right-clicking on top of the key and go into this thing called Keyframe Interpolation. Now what we have at the moment is called continuous Bezier. So it's continuous from this side to that. And I want to change that to Bezier. I'm going to change both of these to Bezier, both temporal and spatial. So now if we drag from the handles, we have more control over the two. And I'm looking for something like this, like a nice coming all the way down, then going almost straight up. I'm going to do the same for these two low points, Keyframe Interpolation, and change the two types to Bezier. Like that. And the high points, it's good that you keep the continuous Bezier there, because we want a smooth action on the top. What you could do is just spread it out a bit so that it's long time up in the high point. So you want something like this. And let's play that back. So the movement is better, but it's very even. We'd want the fish to spend a lot more time up in the air and only a couple of frames coming down, going up, to make it feel like the fish has weight. In After Effects, speed can be quite hard to control. Unless you go into this graph editor, whatever property you have selected, if you click on this box here, and you will probably have this kind of thing showing. So this is the speed graph, and this can be edited as much as you want, and you can certainly play around with it. There's another type of graph, the value graph, which is more like what you'd have in Autodesk Maya. I'm going to close that, and instead I'm going to show you a workaround that gives quite nice results in this kind of a simple bouncing ball exercise. So what I would do, give more time to the upper parts of the movement, less time to the bounces. So I would go roughly halfway between two key points, and I would add a keyframe here. If you move the fish at all, After Effects will add you a keyframe here. But if you don't want to move that at all, one place to simply add a keyframe is here. If you tick that box, it will add a key to the current time. These are also the arrows here where you can go to the next keyframe or previous. On both sides of the bounce, I would create an extra keyframe halfway through, and then move these key points closer to the bounce. So what we now have is I'm not sure if we can really see the point here, but because we moved this key point in time, there are less frames between the new key point and the one of our main keys, and more towards the high position. So I'm gonna do the same for the other two bounces. So somewhere halfway through, I'm gonna add a key point. Same thing there, going between the next two keyframes. Again, roughly halfway through. It doesn't really matter where this extra key point is, as long as you move the extra key point towards the bounce. And the same here. So I move these two closer. Okay, and if you wanted to work this movement and adjust it, move the keys around, you could work with the time. And it's a good idea that you add as few key points as you can when you still want to retime the whole piece. Once you have keys on every frame, it gets very messy. It gets harder to control the overall time. Just a quick tip: if your After Effects gets very slower than it usually is, you might try this little trick to help it. You go under Edit, there's Purge, and you purge all memory and disk cache. Get rid of that. It will get rid of all the previews as well, but that can temporarily make your After Effects work a lot faster. Okay, so now we'll go into that whole squash and stretch and rotate business, which is a bit limited in the way we do it now, but it's an introduction to animating several properties at the same time. When I start animating scale and rotation, I'm gonna activate those channels, and that will also give me the default position, default scale, which I can then even copy and paste later on if I want my object to return to its original size. I'm gonna go towards the bounce, and just one frame before the bounce, I'm gonna rotate the fish. I'm also gonna stretch it, but to be able to change the two scale values independently, you have to untick this lock. So now we can make the fish longer, and After Effects is gonna take care of the in-betweening. So then in the frame just at the bounce, I'm gonna rotate it all the way like this, and then make a big squash. So scale the values bit the opposite way that what it was in the previous. That's now getting too big. And then in the next frame we should get back into the stretched version. I could start the pose by copying the scale values from the previous stretched key. Rotate it a bit already. Maybe I'll rotate. If you have an object like ball, it doesn't have to be this detailed, but with this fish shape we can see so clearly where things are. And now after a couple of frames, return the fish scale back to its normal. I could do it just scaling it. I could also copy paste this original scale. So now over a couple of frames it returns to normal. I'm gonna do the rotation next, rotate it kind of 180, and then around here I want to start stretching it again. So scale values, copy paste the original values there, then one frame before the bounce I'm gonna stretch it again, and I might be able to use the same values as there, but I'm gonna manually do it. And then again at the bounce we want to have a slightly squashed fish. The next frame needs to be the long version again. Maybe I'll copy paste that from there, and we need to then look at the rotation. I want it to be already rotated a bit when it flies off. And after a couple of frames, we bring the normal scale values again. This time coming down, I'm gonna rotate it just 90 degrees like this, so that we get a different kind of a squash. I'm gonna copy paste the original scale there again, then one frame before the bounce, slightly stretch it. I think it's losing its volume there a bit, make it a little bit more stretchy. Then again, squash. I'll copy paste again, and then after maybe 2 frames, copy paste the original scale values. Let's see how this plays. It's not bad. I think I might have done a little bit too much squash and stretch. It gets out of the volume as well. So although this might look kind of nice with the squash and stretch, you can notice it too well. I could go and just do a little less of, well, both stretch and squash. Definitely getting out of volume there. So something like that.